Do you know what, guys, just to be a good steward of everybody's time, we are going to get started. I'm sure there will be some people wandering on island time, true to form, but I do want to be a good use of our guest time. So we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We're not going to check for a quorum tonight, mostly because we don't have anything we're voting on, so we don't need a quorum unless somebody opposes me closing the meeting at the end, and that just never happens. So we are going to immediately start. First off, I want to make sure everybody knows you all got the obnoxious, you're being recorded for posterity. We'll be making a movie out of this. No, we do post it for people who aren't able to attend the meeting. But we're gonna go ahead and start with our guest speakers. Let's get right to the highlight of the meeting. So without any further ado, I would like to give Bryson and Kimberly the floor. And Bryson, if you wouldn't mind introducing Kimberly to the group.
No, not at all. So most of you guys on the call probably have seen me before, or I've talked to you before, or something along those lines. My name is Bryson Frazier. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Park Board. And with me tonight is a very special guest. Her name is Kimberly Danesi. She is our new interim CEO of the Park Board, who we're hoping maybe one day becomes permanent. We'll see. There is going to be a search for that. But in the meantime, she is our fearless leader. She's been with the Park Board, Kimberly, what, 6 years, 7 years now, I think? Seven. I was close. So she's been there longer than me. She has a really good background. I'll let her talk a little bit more about that. But she's been in the interim CEO position basically since Kelly left. And we're all sad that Kelly's gone. We all love and revere Kelly. But I really do say this with an honest heart. I think Kimberly Danesi is somebody who you want to be managing the organization while we're in this transition period. She's been a great friend of mine, a great colleague of mine, somebody who I've been able to work with great. She used to be, well, still is, I shouldn't say used to be, our Chief Operations Officer. So she's in charge of the guys that you see cleaning up the beach. She's in charge of the guys that are managing the parks and doing all of that work. And you've seen what great work she did over the last few years. So we think we're in good hands. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to her to kind of talk a little bit more about herself and introduce you guys to Stroke.
Great. Thank you, Bryson. And I feel kind of bad now for making fun of your headphones because that was a lovely introduction. But yeah, as Bryson said, my name is Kimberly Danesi, and I've been with the Park Board for 7 years. I've been a Galvestonian since 1999. It's been on the island for quite some time. Before I came to work at the Park Board, my career started in tourism. So I worked for Schlitterbahn when they first opened the door. I was the third employee that they hired when they were still a pile of dirt sitting next to Moody Gardens. So that's where I started my career. And then I was recruited into oil and gas. So sticking with something liquidy, went from a water park to the oil and gas industry and worked for a French firm for 7 years down in Freeport, Texas, continued to be a resident here in Galveston. That was a wonderful opportunity for me. I really loved it, but obviously a 45 to 1 hour commute one way, you know, you guys live on the island for a reason, and so do I. So that I can have a little bit of quality of life. And so as great as it was and as much experience as I had, I was really looking forward to getting back onto the island, and was recruited by the Park Board, by Kelly DeShawn specifically, to come and work for the Park Board. And as Bryson said, my acting role is Chief Operations Officer. I oversee everything on the sand except for beach patrol. What that looks like is coastal zone management. So these are the crews cleaning all 32 miles of beaches, beach building. Whenever you see Babes Beach expanding, or you see beach expansion projects, anything on the sand, that falls under my department. Anything having to do with environmental education or programming falls under my department. And then the beach parks themselves. So we have 6 parks that we manage on behalf of the city of Galveston, and I manage those. And Kelly had big shoes to fill. I learned a lot from Kelly. She did a lot of really wonderful things for the island, but also for me personally and professionally. And I hated to see her go, but what I've been saying to people is, you know, it's really hard to see her go, but she did such a good job of empowering her staff, myself included, that we feel like we've got this. She did a fantastic job of preparing us to take the lead, and was always very good about incorporating us in the things that she was doing, the initiatives that she was undertaking. So I do feel very strong and excited about this opportunity, at least in the interim, to lead the organization. I'm grateful for Bryson, Chief Davis, Tony Lyle with the CBB, who I don't know if you all have had the chance to meet yet, but he's fantastic. So great team, great organization, great things that we're doing. As Bryson said, there is a search that just kicked off last week for the CEO. There was a contract signed with a group out of Florida called Winners Partners, and they have worked with CBBs in the past, and they will be here next week to start meeting with key employees and with our board to understand what it is that they're looking for in a candidate. They'll be interviewing me as part of that process too. And then it's supposed to be an 80-day process, start to finish. So hopefully before the end of the year, there will be an announcement about our next CEO for the island. In either circumstance, it's my intent to stay with the organization. That's why I'm maintaining the COO position. But for some reason, I am not the final candidate, which I hope I am. But if I'm not, I'm okay with that. I still love this organization. I love this island. I love what we do. And I want to continue to contribute and plan on doing so for as long as they will tolerate me or let me. So that's a little bit about me. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Great. I guess I did a really good job.
And I was gonna, I guess my mic should be on if I'm actually gonna participate in the meeting, huh? Do we have any questions from the floor? Awesome. Kimberly, we can't thank you enough for coming here tonight. We as short-term rental owners, as an organization, we really value deeply our relationship with the park board, and we look forward to working with you closely in the future.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I imagine you guys have a lot on your agenda and definitely a lot on your plate these days with it being the height of the season. But thank you for giving me the opportunity, and would love, even in the role of COO, to come back and present to you all again on all the projects that we have going on our beaches. Lots of exciting things that we have planned for the future, and would be happy to give you guys updates on those.
We love that. And also just a shout out or a shameless kiss up. Bryson is one of your most bravest employees. He comes in here regularly after some very touchy times. And, he never shies away when he knows that there's been something going on that we're hot under the collar about. He comes and he talks to us, and we appreciate that we have a voice in the process, that he takes the time to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Bryson's been a great addition to the park board. And I always say that I honestly didn't think that we were going to find anybody in my professional career, not just at the park board, somebody who is an accountant who also has just an incredible personality and is just a friendly, vivacious, fun person. And he is the total package. So we are very fortunate to have pulled him away from his home state and pulled him down here to Texas. And I hope he stays. I know he's had a rough road, but I truly, truly hope that he sticks it out, and Galveston is better with him for sure.
Absolutely.
Your headphone comment is completely forgiven now.
Thanks.
Oh, I was going to say, she called you the total package even with the headphones. So, it balances out.
I've met his wife. It's okay. And my husband is listening in the other room.
So, Bryson, what do you have for us tonight?
All right, thank you, Anna. I have a quick presentation. I'll try to run through it pretty quickly. It is about 15-20 minutes, but knowing me, maybe a little bit longer. Then I was going to turn it over back to you guys, try to do a little bit of Q&A. I'm sure there's going to be some questions about the software. I'll try my best to answer them. Yes, there's been some issues, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. We are working on all of those. Forgive us and work with us if it takes us some time to help you with your issues. But at the end, I'll give you your contact information, who you can talk to, and if you are experiencing any issues in the new software, we will get you squared away. But Anna, I was going to talk to you tonight about short-term rentals, where we are right now on the island, what things are looking like in terms of registrations, collections. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got here, right? We're here, we got this new software, we got this new hotline, we're collecting more than ever. How did that happen? I'll talk a little bit about where I think we're going to end this current fiscal year. I refer to everything in fiscal year. Sorry, guys. That's for us is October 1 to September 30th. We follow the fiscal year of the federal government. So we're in fiscal year 2023 right now, and that went from October 1st, 22 to September 30th, 23. So when you hear me talking about things, if I'm referencing a year, chances are I'm referencing a fiscal year. So just keep that in mind. I'll talk a little bit about where I think we're going to end the year in terms of collections. I'll touch on the software. If there's time and if it's people are interested, I'll kind of show a little bit of what it looks like on the administrative side, on our side, the park board and the city side, and then turn it over for some Q&A if there's enough time.
Bryson, let me know if you need screen sharing capacity for any reason.
I do. I got a PowerPoint for you. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you guys look at my face all night long.
I'm gonna just make you a co-host. I think that's gonna be the easiest thing.
Okay.
There you go, Bryson. You have all the power now.
It looks like I should be able to do this. So let me pull this up. Can you guys see the beginning of my PowerPoint here?
Not yet.
Oh, you know why? Because I didn't actually press share. Let me do that.
Now we got it.
All right, so let me go ahead and get this started. Okay, so an update on short-term rental for you, short-term rentals for you, where we are, where we're headed, what's going on, and what do we think is going to happen. So let me talk to you guys a little bit. And before I do that, sorry, I always forget about this. Let me introduce myself really quick for those of you that don't know me. I am from New Mexico originally. I went to Eastern New Mexico University, got my degree in business there. I've taken, I don't even know how many accounting classes since then. I am a certified fraud examiner as well. Did that because I spent most of my career, about 13 years or so, at the state level. So I worked for the state of New Mexico for a long time. I was a tax auditor for a while. Then I went and worked in casino regulation for the Gaming Control Board. That was a lot of fun and a lot of really cool stories I'll tell you about some other time. Then I went back to the Taxation and Revenue Department as their budget director. I remember when I was doing my casino regulation, I always thought that I wanted to be a cop or something like that, work for the Criminal Investigation Division for the IRS or for the SEC or something along those lines. I always thought would be a lot of fun to do the white collar crime. And I did get a chance to participate in some white collar crime investigations. They were fun. But I distinctly remember my wife saying if I wanted to marry a cop, I would have married a cop. So that's when I decided to get into administration. So I went to the Taxation Revenue Department again for the second time, was their budget director for a while, then became the state property tax director underneath the Taxation Revenue Department and did that. That was a governor appointed position. And did that until Governor Susana Martinez's administration ended. That's when I made my way into local government. I ended up working for the city of Rio Rancho as their deputy finance director. Did that for a couple of years, loved it. I lived in Rio Rancho. I was about 15 minutes away from the office. Never thought I'd leave until this job came open, the CFO for the park board. I never even thought I'd live in Texas until I saw Galveston. Galveston impressed me that much just by checking it out as much as I could on the internet. And I did watch a lot of those live cameras that we have on our website. But I really enjoyed the island, fell in love with it virtually, threw my hat in the ring, didn't even think I was going to get a call back. Next thing you know, several interviews later, we're packing a U-Haul and I'm moving my family down here. I am married. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. I do live on the island, so I'm right here with all of you guys. That's a quick and dirty history of me. But how did we get here? Why am I talking to you guys today? So back in 2015, it was the city of Galveston that transferred the collection of short-term rental registration fees and hotel occupancy tax to the park board. That's when we became responsible for it. It was late in fiscal year 2015. Ordinance 21-021, which was also passed in the year 2021. That was another big reason why all this happened. That required two things, right? So it required certain platforms to collect and remit the hotel occupancy tax for all intents and purposes. That is Airbnb and Vrbo. And I'm going to get to this here in just a minute, but the reason why it's required by ordinance is because we didn't sign a VCA. City attorney didn't want to do a VCA. He'd rather require by ordinance that anybody that has a VCA, i.e. is collecting and paying hotel occupancy tax to the state, will do the same thing for the city of Galveston. So like I said, for all intents and purposes, that's Airbnb and Vrbo. It also required short-term rental owners to display the registration number on advertisements. So whether that's online, whether that's in the paper, whether it's Facebook, whatever, you should be displaying your registration number. That was the other big requirement. Another ordinance that was passed also in 2021 was Ordinance 21-051. And that made the registration requirement an annual thing. So before all of this, it was a one-time $50 registration. You guys know all this. I'm preaching to the choir. Then it became an annual thing, and then it got raised to $250. Just really, really quick, so everybody on the call knows, the $250 was established by council. The park board does not keep all $250 per registration. We keep about $92 per registration. The other $158 goes to the city. If you're wondering what the park board uses that money for, we use it essentially for just a handful of things. The software itself, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. It talks about the one staffer that I have on board, Don Robinson, who administers the software and also is responsible for reconciling the hot collections and preparing the distribution to the city. And then it helps pay for the audit program that was established by the city auditor. So the city auditor is doing hotel occupancy tax audits, and this registration fee helps pay for that. So those were the big changes, and that's kind of how we got here. That was really quick. That was in a nutshell. Everybody on the call, I'm sure, knows all the history, or at least is familiar with the most recent version of it. And that's how we got here. So what have been the results since all this has went down? And you have to forgive me, I talk a little bit about the part of this that I know, the part of this that I was involved with. I know a lot of you on the call have been involved with this for much, much longer than I've been around. So if I glossed over a lot of stuff really quickly, forgive me for that. I understand your involvement and all that you guys have done to get us to where we are today. I want to make sure I take a minute to say that to Stroke. You guys are instrumental that we're even here with the software trying to do this. We're at the forefront trying to collect this data, be good, responsible owners. You guys are at the forefront of that. I'm telling you, you're innovative, you're front and center, and people are paying attention. So thank you. But let's talk about what's been working, what's been going on. So the park board has been able to increase hot collections by about $14 million or 94% per year over time, of course, from 2016 to 2022. Quite an achievement. We've done a pretty good job of collecting, and a lot of that has come from you folks. You folks are paying a lot of hotel occupancy tax right now. The park board has overseen the two most successful years of hot collections, right? FY21 and FY22 were both record years. And FY22 just completely shattered FY21, and FY21 was a record. FY23 looks like it's probably going to just slightly outpace FY22. So we're looking for another record collection year. I don't think we're going to continue to see that kind of growth, but I think it is important to note that this is actually probably going to be the strongest year that we've had on the island. Since the ordinance went into effect that required Airbnb and Vrbo to pay the hotel occupancy tax, they've paid $13 million, okay? With this last distribution that we're going to be preparing this week, it's going to be over $14 million. So the good news here is there's a lot of hotel occupancy tax out there that wasn't being collected. That is now, and that's an important thing to note. So I want to make sure that I point that out. One of the things that even got us here to require Airbnb and Vrbo to pay was the state was actually outpacing us when it came to collections. When this whole thing started a few years ago when I got here, we reached out to the comptroller's office and said, hey, you guys mind showing us your collection numbers here on the island? And they were courteous enough to do so. So we took a look at it, and lo and behold, they were collecting more efficiently than us, and not just by a little bit, right? So it was by about 16% when you get to about 2019, 2020. They're 16% higher than us. That's not just a little bit, right? That's not just because of this or that. That's they're doing a better job. That's when we learned about the voluntary collection agreements. That's what led to the ordinance to require those two entities to collect and remit hotel occupancy tax. The good news is now that they are, the state hotel or the local hotel occupancy tax is actually being collected at a higher rate than the states. We're about 4.4% higher than them in collections, which is big. They do allow for that 1% rebate if you pay on time. The city doesn't allow for that. They also allow for a couple of deductions that are not allowed on the local level. So that could explain a lot of that 4.4%. But the good news is at least we're collecting what the state's collecting. So there was an efficiency problem there. It's been eliminated. There was a large tax gap, millions of dollars. That's been eliminated. We're happy about that.
Hey, Bryson, can I break in with a question quickly?
Sure.
So we do not, that's one of the problems I had when all this happened in 2017 is we did lose that 1%.
Mm-hmm.
But then of course the state also did a VCA and released us from liability once they contracted directly, which City of Galveston does not do. But we don't get that 1%. So I'm just dying to know, where's that 4% difference come from, do you think?
So, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint exactly, but I would say it's a combination of the deductions that they allow and that 1% rebate. Does that make up for the full 4.4? I don't know. We haven't dived into that completely, but I would venture to say that that's got to be the majority of it.
Well, I mean, you guys are on the right side of that, so.
Right, right. So that, right, there's that. Absolutely. Um, Registered properties increased by over 1,200 units. So when this annual requirement came to be, we saw a huge spike in registrations. I always share this little anecdote when I share this with groups. It's actually kind of funny. We do press releases. We have our weekly article that you'll see our PR team put out. We do the joint press releases with the city. We have our social media. We do all that other stuff. When we put out the word that, hey, you got to register, it's an annual requirement. And not only that, you have to put your registration number on your advertisement. When we put the word out, we might get 20, 30 registrations in a day. When we got Airbnb and Vrbo to communicate that message, you'd get 200, 300, 400 registrations in a day. And we can completely understand that, right? When Airbnb sends a message that you might get kicked off the platform, for a lot of you that rely on that for your income stream, I completely get it. But my point is, and the reason why I share that is we've done a pretty good job of leveraging those communication channels. If they have a really good reach and people are paying attention to those messages as they come across, then that's the way that we can get the message across. We've even done mailers in the water bill. I'm sure you guys have seen some of that. But anyways, my point is we take advantage of whatever communication channels we can get our hands on. We do have mass email capabilities. We got the press releases and such. But we also try to communicate with the platforms and get them to spread the message as well. Even with our old software, which was very user-friendly, and I know you guys, a lot of you guys liked it, and the new stuff maybe not be as user-friendly, but the old software was very, very manual. It was very, very rudimentary. It didn't track short-term rentals. It didn't do anything. It basically collected registration fees and collected some of that basic data. And it was a hotel occupancy tax collection system, and that's all that it did. But even with that tool, we were able to achieve about an 88% compliance rate over at the park board. And what I mean by that is how many short-term rental registration units we actually, or short-term rental units are actually out there versus how many are registered, right? So that when I say that 88%, that's what I mean. So not bad with a very manual process. We've been doing a lot of good things. Let's talk a little bit, and I like to use these kinds of graphs. I'm an accounting nerd. I like numbers. So these are the kinds of graphs that really turn me on and really help me see what's actually happening. So if you take a look at what we're looking at the screen right now, this is the hotel occupancy tax penny value. And for those of you that don't know what I mean by penny value, this is how much money we collect for every 1% of tax that is levied. So for every 1% of the 9% of the local tax rate, this is how much we've collected in any given year. So you're looking at a chart here. This is a trend line from 2012 all the way to 2022, so the last 11 years. And one of the things that I'd like to point out is you saw some slight growth, but then a little bit of a plateau between 2016 and 2017. And that's right when the park board really started picking up. And we were doing a pretty good job of increasing collections until we got to COVID. Everybody knows what happened during COVID. Some parts of the island shut down, some of the parks shut down, some of the hotels shut down. So we see that dip in revenue. But in 2021, when the ordinance got passed that required those two platforms to pay, and that's also when we saw a huge explosion in short-term rentals, it's not just because of the platform. There has been a growth in short-term rentals. You can see the huge spike in hot collections, and that's what we're looking at here. So in 2020, the end of COVID, we had a $1.8 million penny value. Not bad, but as you can see, not the best. I mean, that's going back to 2017 when we hit that penny value. So we did see a little bit of a dip. But at the end of 2021, that increased to 2.5 million, which was a record, and not just by a little bit, by a lot. And then when we ended 2022, we hit 3.3 million per penny. So if anybody's counting out there, it's about $30 million in hotel occupancy tax that was collected in that year. So that's a record, and not just by a little bit. I don't think this kind of growth will continue. I think we're going to plateau a little bit now that we've seen a couple of years of collections with the new ordinance changes. So I do think that we'll be settling somewhere between 3.3 and 3.5 million for the next few years. I could be wrong. That's just what I think is going to happen. Registered short-term rental growth, right? So we all know that short-term rentals have grown, and it's hard for me to tell you exactly how many are out there because the market's very elastic, and I'm going to talk about that in here just a little bit. But we have seen a substantial growth since the park board took over registering short-term rentals. So as you can see, in 2017, there was about 2,100 short-term rentals. We ended 2022. This is one of those rare instances where I'm referring to a calendar year and not a fiscal year. So we ended calendar year 2022 with about 4,900 rentals. So quite a lot of growth. Is all of that new short-term rentals brand new to the market? No. Exactly how many are brand new short-term rentals, I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that there was a sizable chunk of them that were already in the market. They just weren't registered. They weren't collecting, they weren't paying. And now they are registered, and now they are doing those things, which is good. Right now, as of 2023, and this was about a week or two ago, we had about 4,400 short-term rentals registered on the island. That's not completely odd for this time of year because it's on an annual cycle now. You'll see a lot more trickle in between now and the end of the year, but our big registration push is in December. I think by the time we get to December, we are going to see around 4,900 registered short-term rentals, but I still don't think that that's all of them. I think there's a little bit more than that, and I'll talk about that here in just a moment. So the $1 million question, Anna, that I'm sure a lot of you guys are asking, exactly how many are on the island. And like I mentioned, it's hard to pinpoint, but our current software shows that there's somewhere between 4,900 and 5,300, excuse me, active listings at any given point in time. And what do I mean by any given point in time? It's hard to quantify an unknown, and this is in a very elastic market. And what I mean by that is people come in and out of the market on a daily basis. You'll probably see 4,800 to 4,900 active listings during the week or during the shoulder season. And that jumps up to over 5,000 on the weekend. It happens, right? You even have those people that come into the market just for the weekend. They live here permanently. They normally don't rent their house, but 4th of July rolls around and they do rent. So it's hard to say exactly how many there are on the island, but if I had to guess, I'd say there's about 5,000 short-term rentals on the island that are active at any given point in time. So what caused this big spike in registered short-term rentals? So we already talked about it a little bit, and that was the registration numbers, right? You actually had to display it on your advertisement. That caused a lot of people to come into compliance. Then it became an annual thing. And when it became an annual thing and people realized that their advertisements were going to get taken down, and we did take down a lot, that's another reason why people came to get registered and come to compliance. But like I mentioned earlier, that growth of over 1,200 in just the last couple of years is probably not all brand new short-term rentals, but a lot of them are brand new short-term rentals. Do I think we're going to continue to see that kind of growth? No, I think we're going to plateau a little bit. Again, I could be wrong, but I think we're already starting to see the market cool off a little bit. At least that's what some of the realtor folks that I've talked to have said. I was last week was at the Sand and Sea sales event for their realtor group, and a lot of those people have said the same thing, right? They're seeing a little bit of a cool down of people buying houses just to register them and use them as short-term rentals, right? There's a little bit less of that going on. So I don't think we're going to continue to see the same kind of growth. But if you think about it, 5,000 active short-term rentals at any given time with a town of 47,000 people, sizable chunk. We got a lot of short-term rentals. We are a very large market, especially for the size of our town. So what has the growth in short-term rentals meant for hotel occupancy tax collections? So just a minute ago, we were looking at what collections looked like as a whole, right? That's everybody. That's hotel, short-term rentals, bed and breakfast, the whole kit and caboodle. What has collections meant in terms of short-term rentals? So this is the short-term rental hot collections from 2018 to 2023. What I think is so interesting about this trend analysis is when you're looking at it in 2018 and 2019, it looks very similar to total hotel growth, hotel occupancy tax growth. But if you look at 2019 and 2020, there's not a dip. Short-term rentals became more popular during the pandemic, which I thought was really, really interesting, especially in destination places like ours. They became really, really popular. They were already popular with people like me. I have 2 young children. When my wife and I go out of town, especially with the kids, we like a short-term rental. We like exactly what you guys provide, that local experience, the privacy, the seclusion, all that stuff, right? Exactly what you guys provide. And if it's just my wife and I, if it's a quick weekend to Vegas, we don't mind a hotel. So it really just depends. But my point is look at these collections and look at how they've spiked over the last few years. It's just been a continued upward growth. And you can see that plateau between 2022, where we ended the year, and 2023, where I think we're going to end the year. But look at that growth. I mean, that's huge. We're talking about $5.4 million in 2018, all the way up to almost $17 million, I project, a little bit under for 2023. So short-term rentals are here to stay. You guys are paying your fair share. And there's a lot more short-term rental folks now that are paying that weren't before. So you guys are a market player, and I don't see you going away anytime soon. Let's take a look at the trend line now for short-term rental collections as a percentage of total hotel occupancy tax, right? So if you look at the growth in the short-term rental hotel occupancy tax, or another way of looking at market share, you can see the trend line here. 2018, short-term rentals contributed and paid about 29% of the hotel occupancy tax. In 2022, you guys ended at 53%. That's huge. You guys are a huge part of the tourism economy, and we all know that the tourism economy is what really pushes this island forward. And part of the reason why we've seen such huge growth in the hotel occupancy tax is absolutely because of the short-term rental industry. I think at the end of this year, you guys should be about 54% of total collections. Incredible. And this has not come completely at a detriment to hotels. Now, hotels have seen some issues. They saw them with COVID. They did lose some revenue then. And occupancy is down a little bit now. Part of that is just because of the market that we're in right now in terms of labor. Hotel owners are having a hard time finding people, whether that's in the bars, whether that's just regular workers, whether that's cleaning folks or anything like that. They're having a hard time finding people to fill those positions. So what they're doing right now is charging more per room, right? So occupancy might be down a little bit, but they're charging a lot more per room and providing a better service to their guests. So, and they have record revenues too over the last couple of years, right? So I say all that to say this growth in short-term rentals has not come at the expense of hotels. At least the data doesn't show it completely right now. There might be some overlap, some competition during the shoulder season, but during the summer season when things are really, really busy, a lot of the people that are coming and staying in short-term rentals are folks that otherwise wouldn't have gotten to come because the hotels are full, right? So it's not necessarily competition. You guys are serving a new market. So what is the park board doing about all of this, right? That's what you guys are probably wanting to know. And the good news is we're not doing anything. Are we perfect? Do we do everything right? No, but at the very, very least, we're going to try to do something. We're going to try to be good partners with the industry folks like yourselves. We're going to keep in mind that we have a fiduciary responsibility to the city as the registration and collection agent to try to do our best there. And then we also make sure that we're trying to provide good customer service. I know that typically you guys have gotten really quick responses and stuff from us. It's a little bit maybe more delayed now when you call with an issue. That's a result of the new software implementation. Hopefully things are getting better. If you're still having issues, I'm going to give you my contact information at the end, and we can make sure that we get you guys squared away, because the goal is to make the new software work. So let's talk about that a little bit. Obviously, there was a need for an improvement. The old software, like I had mentioned to you guys, was wonderful and good in terms of its user friendliness, but we collected bad data. It wasn't the best data. And what I mean by that, and I'll give you an example, is you could have the same property registered 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, right? You have the owner register it, and then a management company comes in and registers it, and then it's sold, and a new owner does it, new management company, so on and so forth. So we had a lot of what we call duplicates. We had a lot of data that we didn't know if it was good anymore or anything like that. That's why with the new system, when you're trying to change your registration information, sometimes it can be difficult. The reason why is that information is a little bit more regulated than it was before. We're wanting to make sure that we're keeping one active registration per property, that we have the right owner information, and that we have the right property contact information. It's going to take us some time to get there, but that's part of the reason why you're seeing a little bit of it maybe not being as friendly as it was before. But it is working. The good news is you can register and you can pay your taxes, and those are the two most important things. But when we looked at our old software, we knew that something had to happen. So we had to get something new. We had to get something more up to date with the times. So we did a request for proposals. We issued that in June of 22. We selected the vendor, which is Decker Technologies. That's who you guys are interfacing with now when you go to register and pay. That contract was awarded in October of 2022. We began program building in November of 2022. There was a task force that was designed to go through all of this. A lot of Ron was a part of that group that helped vet all that stuff when we first got started. Claire and Mary Branham have been helping us with the software side, helping us with testing, bulk payments, a number of other things. So they got involved and began helping with that in November of 22. Of course, their involvement spans many years before that. I'm just talking about the software timeline. Testing was completed in June of 23. We received city feedback on compliance and hotline issues. So that would include the compliance letters that the system is able to generate. You haven't seen those come out yet. I can talk about that here in a minute. And then there's been the hotline itself, right? The number that people can call if they have an issue with the short-term rental. There's a hotline, a number that they can call, and there's also an online form that they can fill out where they can upload pictures, video, and other things. So there's now a way for residents to report on issues that they might be experiencing. And then, of course, with any software implementation, there's hiccups, there's issues, there's kinks. And there have been with this, right? So it's a number of different things when you're trying to accommodate ordinance, right? And every city has a different ordinances and different rules. So you have to make sure you're configuring the software to do something like that. We're a large market. We have some of the larger property management companies, Vacasa, and groups like that on the island that manage hundreds of properties. You got Sand and Sea, Bryson, Valera. We got all of those different groups. And so we're trying to make sure that we have a solution that can accommodate large players like that. And that's what we're working through right now with Deckard. It's not perfect, but like I said, the majority of taxpayers are able to register and they are able to pay their hotel occupancy tax online. And we do think that we're collecting much better data. And I'll show you guys some of that here in a little bit. The system went live in July of 23, and I do apologize for doing that during your busy season. I know you guys have so much going on, and it was a really inconvenient time to do all that for you. You guys, I'm sure, are aware of the city and park board issues that have been going on for the last 8 to 12 months. We were having to pivot and work through some of those issues. We had originally hoped to get this launched in the spring. We weren't able to do that, so we had to launch as soon as we could in July. And that's what ended up happening. So from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry, guys. I know it was really hard for you and not the best time. You guys have been troopers. You guys have been great in helping us make this be as successful of the software launch as we could make it. So what does the new system do, right? So there's what you guys have to deal with, which is the registration and paying your tax side. What does it do for us as a government? So one of the things that it does that the old software did not do is it identifies registered and unregistered short-term rental properties. It can distinguish between the two. It ensures valid licenses, accurate tax payments. It enables the tracking of occupancy for analysis of visitation patterns. And I can show you guys the dashboard here in a little bit. So it's collecting data that we never had before. ADRs, calendar usage, total revenue, those kinds of things. Largest taxpayers on the short-term rental side. It's collecting that kind of data that we never had before. It also collects historical online advertisements, and we've had some of this kind of come up with the new audit program with the city auditor. Somebody will register, they get audited, and they say, oh, I didn't have any activity before I registered. I didn't rent before then. This new system actually tracks advertisements and will save historical copies of advertisements even once they're taken down. We have essentially a PDF of that advertisement, and we can show that no, you were active. You had a blackout on your calendar. You had somebody put in your comment section that they enjoyed their stay there. We know that you were active before you registered. So it's a nice audit tool. We do send out, or the system is capable of sending out automated compliance letters to non-compliant properties. So as the system identifies them, it can automatically send a letter out to the owner or whatever owner information we have. And notifying them that we've identified their property as a short-term rental, that we think they're active, and that they need to come into compliance. We are not issuing those letters right now today. And the reason why we're not doing that is we wanted to give people a little bit of grace, let them get used to the new system. feel it out before we start issuing those, but we are going to be sending those probably within the next month or so. So as we identify non-compliant property, the owner will be notified. It does provide a GIS mapping of all short-term rentals on the island. It's a really cool interactive map that we can see. It gives that spatial awareness. When you see a list of short-term rentals, that's one thing. When you see a bunch of dots on a map, that's another thing. And what's really cool about it is you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can identify properties that the system thinks is in compliance and properties that the system thinks are not in compliance. Of course, there's the 24/7 complaint hotline and online complaint form where people can report issues. We've worked out the script with the city. Right now, I'll give you just a couple of quick examples. In every instance, if the hotline receives a complaint about the property, we are contacting the local contact, okay? If it's a trash issue, we are forwarding that complaint to the marshal's office. If it is noise, if it's a party, if it's parking, if it's something that might require a more immediate response, but not quite an emergency, those calls are being forwarded to the non-emergency police line. If it is an emergency, the call center should be directing people to hang up and dial 911. So that's how that's flowing right now. The new software does track all of that. So whether a complaint comes in through the hotline or online, it's tracking it and it is associating it with that property, and the history of that complaint will be saved with the property profile. What we've seen just in the last few weeks of it being open, a lot of trash, a lot of noise. I mean, that's essentially the complaints that we're getting. The good news is it's not that much. I think in the first weekend, there was 5 phone calls. So there hasn't been a huge amount of volume when it comes to issues with short-term rentals. We're still working out how those need to be triaged and where they need to go. But the idea here is, in terms of software, is collecting that data and making sure that we're tracking it and associating it with the property. The reason why we need that information and why that data is important is that will help the city to determine what kind of enforcement footprint they need to take. Because let's make sure that we have one thing clear. The park board is not in charge of enforcement. We don't issue citations. I don't have anybody out there that I can send out there to check out a party or noise. We are collecting the data. We are currently sharing it with the marshal's office and the police. And hopefully after they collect that data, the city can make a knowledgeable and data-driven decision on what their enforcement footprint should look like. And one of the things that I like about the new system that we didn't have before is customizable reporting. Like I said, I'm a numbers nerd, so I do enjoy that kind of stuff. But that's in a nutshell what the new software system can do, especially on the government side, on the administration side. What's some of the early results that we've seen from the software? And that's what I'm going to talk about now. And that's on the data collection. We've already talked about this, and I'm going to be cognizant of everybody's time. I'm almost done, I promise. The new software does scrape online platforms. It scrapes about 500 different platforms, a little bit less than that here in Texas. And it scrapes that information, whether it's an advertisement, whatever it is, it's going to scrape it, pictures of the property, etc. It's going to scrape it, it's going to collect it, and it's going to put it on what you're seeing right here is that GIS map here on the right. It's going to save all of that information. Short-term rentals have been identified as non-compliant. The system has helped us with a couple of compliance activities. We have found several short-term rentals that are using fabricated GVR numbers, right? They just make it up. Beforehand, we were relying on people calling us, writing into us, giving us tips, and that's how we found non-compliant properties. We have found several using the software with people just using a fake number. We send an email over to Airbnb and Vrbo, and typically within 24 to 48 hours, sometimes a little bit longer, they get busy too, they'll have that advertisement taken down. So people can't go and get on there and rent that property anymore, at least on those platforms. And we have used that before. We found trailers. Anybody that might be interested in knowing if you can use your camper as a short-term rental? No, you cannot. The camper is not a short-term rental. You can only allow campers to be rented if they're in a licensed RV park. That's something that we worked out with the city attorney's office. They gave us some guidance on that. So anyways, we did find a couple of trailers that were being used as short-term rentals when they shouldn't have been. We were able to get those advertisements taken down. And like we had mentioned earlier, system has identified roughly 5,000 individual short-term rentals on the island that are active at any given point in time. We have about 4,400 registered. So we got about 600 more to go before we can say that we're achieving the kinds of compliance results that we want. But the good news is we've identified them. And beforehand, we had no idea who they were or where they were operating. At least with this tool, is it perfect? No, but we have a much better picture than we've ever had before. So what's next, right? Now that we're here, now that we have the software, now that we're dealing with all of this, what's next for the park board? Next steps include refining the short-term rental registration hot collection portion of the software. We are aware of the issues. We want to make it more user-friendly. We are working on all that stuff right now. So for those of you that have experienced issues, I apologize. We will do everything that we can to get it squared away. And in instances where we can improve it, make it more user-friendly, we will. In other instances, we might not, right? We want that information about Airbnb and Vrbo. Beforehand, you might have been able to file 0 returns if you were 100% on Airbnb and Vrbo. You weren't required to file 0 returns. Now we want you to. We feel like that's information that we need. When the park board allowed that some months ago, that was probably a misinterpretation of the ordinance. We do believe that they are required. We want that information anyway, even if you have 0 tax due. So that's just an example of where you might be required to input more data than you have before. But we just recently released a bulk payment option. So for the larger property owners, where you can access all of your properties and make one large payment. For those of you that have more than one, you have a similar feature available to you. If you have any issues when you're trying to work through any of that, let us know. We're here to help. We want to show you those tools. We are working on some tutorial videos. So we've contracted with the vendor to do that as well. So they're working on that right now with a production company to actually come up with some tutorial videos that'll help with the registration and hot payment process. So bear with us as we work that out. If you are a larger property owner, you have more than 25 properties, give us a shout. We already have a tutorial video for you to do your bulk payments. We did open up the hotline. We are working on a PR campaign. We've done some press releases. We've done things like that. We plan on issuing an ad, a big ad in the newspaper, providing people with information that they'll need to register and pay. We've updated our website. So for those of you who have not been to the park board's short-term rental website, go. There's a lot of good updated information there. A lot of good information on how to register, frequently asked questions, things of that nature. We have the mass email capabilities, so we still have that feature. We'll be making sure that we spit out updates and other requirements using the mass email function. And we're going to continue to work on the software, right? Software implementations are never done. They're never complete. We always have room for improvement. And a lot of the feedback, a lot of the changes that we made that have made improvements have come from people like you. So if you have an experience, if you have an issue, let us know what it is. We want to try to work it out with you guys. And then, of course, there's the compliance efforts, right? We've been working with the police. We've been working with the marshal's office. We've been working with industry partners. And there's a new task force that I think is going to get approved by council in the next month or so, where we're going to be looking at the hotline, analyzing that data, seeing if there's a way we can better triage calls. We don't want people to feel like it's a waste of time if they're calling the hotline, but we also want to make sure that the hotline is being used like it should. I've seen complaints where somebody called the other day. They were staying in an apartment complex and they were upset because they didn't have a key card for the pool. And they wanted us to do something about that. We can't help you with key cards with pools. I apologize for that. Here's just some helpful links, and I'm more than happy, Anna, to send you a PDF version of this report or this presentation that you can share with your members. But here is some good information. So there's the park board website's URL. Up at the top. For those of you that haven't taken advantage of it yet, our Visit Galveston wing, that's our tourism development, that's our marketing wing. They do have a short-term rental page on their website, and they do allow for a free listing. So if you have a short-term rental and you want a free listing, visit galveston.com, do a search for short-term rentals, and you'll find it. We do a double check to make sure that they're registered, make sure that they're compliant, and then we'll put an advertisement up on our website. It's a really cool feature. It does link to your other calendars. So if you're on Airbnb and Vrbo or another one, it will link up to your calendar. So if you have a rental that gets confirmed on Airbnb, it will show as booked on our calendar here on our website. Here's the phone number for the hotline. It is a local number, so you can check that out. There's the link to the complaint form. All of this can be found if you just do a simple Google search and just put in Galveston Park Board short-term rentals, and that will take you to a page essentially with all this exact information that I'm sharing with you. We do have a good neighbor brochure that you can download off of our website and print out and put in your properties that you can share with renters. It gives them guidance on how to be a good renter, how to be a good neighbor, what the rules are when it comes to noise, trash, and parking and pets and things like that. So you have that information there. Here is my email address. It's just Frazier, Frazier, at galvestonparkboard.org. If you have any issues, reach out to me, and I do try to respond as quickly as I can. If you have any general questions, if you are having issues with the software, if you're having any of those kinds of problems, please reach out to us at strr@galvestonparkboard.org. And with that, Anna, I will turn it back over to you, and we can answer any questions for the next few minutes.
Bryson, that was a great presentation. Thank you so much. I'm sure that we do have some questions. Guys, do you have any questions for Bryson? Well, if y'all go ahead, Winter, thank you.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I know the answer to this question, but I think it's valid to ask it to the group. So just because you and I have already spoken about it, but identifying valid versus invalid concerns that come through the hotline. Can you address that just so that everyone kind of understands what you shared with me?
Sure. So we have had some people call in with stuff that is just, it's, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't seem like a valid complaint. I'll say it very PC, right? And Winter, you've already experienced this. In those kinds of instances, if you did want to respond as the property owner, you could very easily call us. You know me, you know Dawn. We have the ability to go into the system and track that complaint and provide our feedback, right? So this is not like you're going to have a bunch of negative ticks on your account and somehow get your license taken away because somebody called to complain for whatever reason, right? A valid complaint, something that we would consider valid, is where it was actually shown through as an issue. So, and I'll give you an example. And this might be dissatisfying to hear, but just know that this is how we're tracking some of this stuff. If somebody calls on a Saturday with a trash complaint, the marshals are going to typically respond Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. They do have some people on the weekends, but you can imagine how busy they are. If they respond to that complaint on Monday morning, even though it was left on Saturday and the trash is gone, that's not considered a full-on complaint. The trash eventually got picked up. It's the same thing with noise or something like that. The valid complaint for us, and this is what we're working on right now with City Council, is one that actually leads to some sort of enforcement action being taken, whether that be a citation by the city marshal or something similar issued by the police. We don't have a punitive structure set up yet. What we have recommended to council before, and we'll recommend again, is that there should be some sort of escalating scale, right? Warning number 1, say you get a fine. Warning number 2, you get a fine and your license gets taken. I'm pulling stuff out of thin air here, folks. This is not necessarily what council's considering. I'm just throwing out some options that are being talked about. Violation number 2, maybe at that point you actually get the citation and a fine. Violation number 3, you get the citation and possibly get a license revoked for whatever period of time. So that's being considered right now. But if it's just an invalid complaint, if somebody shows up because you have somebody in the hot tub talking too loud, so the police get called, that's likely not going to result in some sort of citation or anything like that being issued against the property. In your case, Winter, it was somebody calling about something that was completely beyond your control, nothing that you could do. You had evidence that showed that it wasn't an issue. You could share that with us. You could upload that information into the system. We're happy to note it and say that we don't think this is, a valid issue and close down the complaint. So that's how we'll handle it on our side.
Well, and Bryson, I'd like to jump in here. We have been strongly advocating also for no automatic 3-strike anything. There should always be conversation, particularly if you're going to reach the point where you're going to pull somebody's license to operate. Perhaps it's 3 strikes and a hearing needs to happen for this very reason is, you know, the complaint has to be vetted. And the other thing I would encourage you guys to set up where you're not getting key card calls, that the purpose of that is code enforcement, and it should be sold and vetted as such. And if you guys will in your advertisement encourage that, we're looking for trash violations, noise violations, code violations. Maybe that person next time will go when they want to complain that they don't have the key card, or maybe somebody's going to call you because the air conditioner is not the right temperature, whatever silliness. You could probably end run some of that if you set the expectation that this is all about code enforcement.
And I think that's a great idea. In our PR push, when we put our advertisements and stuff out there, we could probably list some of the main elements that the hotline should be used for: noise, trash, and parking.
Right.
But maybe we can expand on that in a section that we can add to our frequently asked questions, right? What is the hotline for? What is it supposed to do? What is it intended to use? And try to get that information out there. I think that's a great suggestion.
Well, the example you used of the neighbors in the hot tub, the nighttime decibel is, I think, is 70, daytime is 65. If that conversation is not exceeding 70 decibels, it's an annoyance to you that nobody can help you with. You should, if you don't want to live right next to neighbors and hear their conversations, that's a tough ask in Galveston. Oh, I think you turned off, Bryson.
I put myself on mute again. That happens.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Yes, no, absolutely. So I think that's all good feedback, and I think it's important that we get that out there, because I can't stop somebody from calling or filling out an online form, but most people aren't going to abuse it, right? You're always going to have that cranky neighbor that's going to do that, right?
Well,
it just happens.
That first weekend you had one neighbor calling 3 times. So most people aren't going to abuse it, but those who are going to abuse it a lot.
Yes.
So I think basically on the form, what code violation would you like to report? And here are your options.
Yeah, no, I think that's good feedback. So I'll make sure we take that into consideration. While we're on a similar topic, compliance, Joe B had a question, and I want to make sure I get to it. I saw the message, and he says, previously we could check an address or street for registrations. That link now defaults to the Deckard site. Will we be able to check our neighborhood in the future? So, Joe, that is a great question. You are not the first one to answer it. As a matter of fact, I've talked about this extensively with Anna and Ron and even Claire. So we did develop a search portal. Included with that search portal to replace the old one was an interactive map, right? A map where you could zoom right in and see where on the map the short-term rental was located. We had several people, including members of Stroke, express some concerns with that, right? And Anna, if I'm speeding or if you want to clarify, let me know. There was a number of concerns, but chief among them was security, right? There was people that were worried that, and it doesn't take a lot to get to here, worried that they were going to look up a property, confirm it's a short-term rental, find it, the advertisement online, have a calendar then that shows blockout dates, and possibly then be advertising themselves for potential property crimes, right? Anna and I've gone back and forth. We don't see completely eye to eye on this issue, but I respect the fact that that's an issue for a short-term rental owner, and I could see why that's a short-term rental issue. So, Joe, to answer your question, is there a search portal available right now? No. We are working on one that doesn't have the map feature. It's going to take us a little bit to build that. In the meantime, if you are wanting to check, send an email to that address that I shared earlier, strr@galvestonparkboard.org, or give us a shout, and we can look it up and tell you if a property is registered or not. So in the meantime, we can do that. The good news is the search version with the map and everything like that is available for police and the marshals, so they are able to look up things as they need it. But we're working on one that's a little bit more secure for you guys, so stay tuned for that.
Well, and Bryson, I'd like to jump in and thank you. That is something that you were willing to do based on our concerns. Basically, what's going to become is exactly what we had before, and we appreciate that. Claire, I saw your hand go up, dear.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Bryson. I appreciate that you guys are so available to all of us. You put your emails out there, you say, call me, come by and see me and everything. Do you anticipate, and I'm sorry now that Kimberly's not on the line, do you anticipate that there's going to be more people sitting in the office there with Dawn working on this? Working on administration, because there's so many of us and we have questions and issues, etc.
So I can't talk too much about personnel issues at the park board, but I can tell you this, Claire. Yes, at some point I hope to bring on another staffer for this.
And the key word's hope. I love it. You're so so tactful.
Well, that's where
Yeah.
that's where the CFO.
Well, I
in
hope
me
so
comes in.
too. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So
It is.
yeah,
It
thanks.
is. And one of the things we're working on right now, and I'll just be honest with the group, critical redundancies, right? We've had a lot of change at the park board recently and a lot of change in my unit. I need to do a better job of making sure that people are cross-trained and are available just in case something comes up. So there is more than one person that can work on something. We're working on that. We did hire, at the very, very least, Claire, you'll be happy to know this, we did hire a temporary staffer to help with some of the clerical side of it. And we're hopeful that that'll at least stem the tide until I can find a more permanent solution.
Bryson, you mentioned zero reports for those of us who rent exclusively through Airbnb and VRBO. I understand that shift is coming, that change is coming, and we'd like to get that message out to our members on how to be in compliance. I know technically the answer is probably today. When do you want to see that in when do you want to see that shift happening, that we do remain in compliance?
Sure. I mean, getting that information from Airbnb and Vrbo shouldn't be hard. We've had some people request refunds and there are reports available to you. You guys have seen it. But you're right. We are requesting that information and we haven't requested it before. Right now, today, that's not going to stop you from moving forward. If you need to file a zero return, you're not quite sure how it works, you're a little bit nervous. If you put a zero in those columns, it's not going to stop you from moving forward and paying your tax or filing your zero return. But in the future, and this will probably be more of a hard requirement in the next, I would say 30 to 60 days, maybe a little bit longer, you will be required to, at the very, very least, go and report that rental information. So, and I'm pulling numbers out of thin air here. Let's say you had $10,000 in rental activity for the month, and 100% of it came through Airbnb. In that case, you would put $100 through or $10,000 through Airbnb, and it would calculate your total tax as zero because we know that we're collecting it through Airbnb if that was the case. So just be prepared that that might be what you have to put in. There's going to be a column for your receipts, your actual gross receipts, your rental activity outside of those two platforms, a column for Airbnb, a column for Vrbo. Calculates your total amount of tax due. Right now, you don't have to put in something to move forward in the Airbnb and Vrbo column. In the future, you will. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does mostly. For those of us who are exclusively on platforms, we're not even going and looking. We're not being stopped from moving forward because we're not even going. So there's going to be a re-education thing here. So I will let our members know within 30 to 60 days. Once y'all have that hard date, I would love to be able to pass it on to our members so we can help you with compliance.
Please. And another thing that I think I'll add to that, Anna, is there's an actual term for these reports that you can get. So if you're running into an issue at Airbnb, maybe we can provide that information. It's called the, revenue report or something like that. So your users will know what to ask if they do have to call Airbnb and Vrbo for assistance.
Yeah, Claire.
I just wanted to say something because we're coming across it. The data that was prepared and migrated over to the new software, we're finding on our properties, and I don't know, Vonda, you have lots of properties and other people do on this call, but we're finding that we're going back in to double check it because some stuff didn't get moved over correctly. In fact, my name is listed. I don't even know why. that it says Claire Riseward in parentheses next to every dang property that we have. So we're going to go in and we're going to correct it all. But I just wanted to warn people or suggest to people, go in and check your data on your properties and make sure that it's correct. It's going to take us some time to do that, but we're going to get it done. And I hope that's part of the grace period also. But it's the same problem we had when we went to new software 2 years ago. You know, a lot stuff just doesn't make it over correctly. It just happens. And so it has to be checked.
You're absolutely right, Claire. That's a legacy database issue. That's my fancy way of saying that, yeah, some of the old data was a little bit faulty, didn't migrate maybe as we would have liked it to. In those instances, what I encourage your users to do is to log in. And this is an important thing to note, especially if you have more than one property. All of them have to be associated with the same email. If you want to be able to access them all at one time, pay them all at one time, they all have to be associated with one email. So go and double check that. But as you're looking at the other property information that you might want to update, some fields you can, some fields you can't. And the reason why we did that is what I mentioned earlier when we had our duplicate registration problem. There's certain information like owner information. If that's going to change, that's something you got to call or send an email to us and work that out, because what we have to do on our end is make sure that we take that property information for the old owner and invalidate it or inactivate it, and then move it forward with the new property owner, right? Because in the city of Galveston, the registration is tied to the property. So if there's going to be a change in ownership, we have to know about that, because there's only supposed to be one license per property. So very long-winded way of saying, if you can't change it, don't get frustrated. That just means that you have to call and we have to do it administratively. Other fields you should be able to change just fine. But yeah, if you run into those issues, just reach out. We can get you squared away.
Bryson, is there a thought that this is, I'm listening to you, and I mean, I think you and your team's efforts are noble, but man, so it sounds very, very manual, like some of it, not all of it. But like when you said that, it made me think, when a property goes from one property manager to another, for example, does the GVR number follow? Like, because it stays with the property, correct? Mm-hmm. So it's like those types of questions, those types of things. Like, it sounds like you're doing videos, but without trial and error, I'm not sure people will know some of the stuff.
Well, and you're right, Winter, and the issue that you actually brought up is one that we are working on right now, right? So the right to register conveys with the property between changes in ownership and changes in management companies. What we were thinking about doing, and this is a solution that we're working on right now with the vendor, is invalidating the old GVR number. You don't have to pay again, because that registration is still good for the rest of the year when you change owners, okay? But invalidating the number, so within the system, we can track it. This number is associated with this property management company, this owner, so on and so forth. Moving forward, if it changes ownership, it's associated with this number. We think that that'll be easier from a software solution standpoint, as opposed to trying to keep the registration number active all the way through with all these changes. I don't have an answer for you completely right now, but we know that that's a problem, and we're working on a solution for it. And as soon as we have it, we'll make sure that we share it.
On that note, guys, we are so over time. It's not even funny. And it's Bryson, I just have to echo what Claire said. We're deeply grateful for the partnership with you.
That's vice versa.
Yeah. Although I'm going to be coming to you about helping us get the word out for Stroke meetings, so expect me.
Okay.
But no, it truly is one of those stronger together things. Know that the conversation will continue, guys. And at this point, we're going to need to move on with the rest of the agenda, because we try and be done by 8. We don't have too much more, but we need to get it done. I just want to really, really thank you, Bryson, and let you know you're welcome to stay.
Thank you.
Also welcome to go have a life on your vacation. You really don't have to sit here and listen to us talk about the nuts and bolts of Stroke stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I probably will log off, but Anna and the rest of the Stroke members, Claire, everybody, especially Claire and Ron, you too. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity, number one, to even be here, for all the extra time that you guys put into this. I know that you guys are busy. You have your own stuff going on. Thank you for being such great partners. The park board loves our short-term rentals. We do. We love you guys. We realize what a huge part you guys play in the tourism economy. Thank you for your time. Sorry, I took a little bit too long.
No, you didn't, not at all. But just know, I do want to put one little pin back in there. Now that we're getting really good at identifying the issues, we'll be very interested in hearing about the enforcement. I know that's not you guys, that's the city, but that once all this stuff gets identified,
Maybe next time you guys meet, because I did want to do it tonight, but we don't have time. Maybe I can actually demonstrate the software for you
Okay.
guys one of these times.
And can you send that report to your presentation to Anna
Yes, ma'am.
so she can
Okay.
send it to us? Thank you so much. Thank
and
you.
into the whole, yeah. Thank you, Bryson.
Thank
Bye,
you, guys.
Bryson.
All right, guys, now that y'all have been so patient, we're going to just go through this super quickly. We're going to start with the, we're going to start with welcoming our guest, which we should have done before that, Ronald. I'm going to need your help on this because we've actually lost one of our guests since then. Let's welcome, can we, first off, everybody, thank you. But particularly we've got a new business partner here tonight who is literally the most supportive patient business partner in the world. Wait, hold on. Did we lose both of our business partner guests? Well, that's all right. I don't blame them one bit after listening to us talk about STR1. Oh, wait. No. Cassidy's here. Sorry, Cassidy. I'm sitting here going, who is the where? Ronald, do you have that list handy? Do you need me to get it out, love?
I have it. We have ROX 360 Cassidy Bauer. Cassidy,
And she is here.
Oh, great. Give us a little info about you guys.
Yeah, and I'll make it quick. Won't make you guys stay on too much longer. But like you said, I'm Cassidy Bauer. I'm with ROX 360. We work with both owners and VRMs. We provide beach gear and experience platform. We actually deliver the gear and pick it up. They can kind of build out their package as far as bikes, beach chairs. We also have some marketing efforts as well to help you capture some additional travelers that are coming in a group, as well as some rebooking notifications that we send them. So we help drive rebookings to the properties as well.
Interesting. And Cassidy, didn't you guys already ask for a table at our next meeting?
Yes, we'll be there October 9th.
And that will be in person, which will allow for some more in-depth conversation. On behalf of the whole organization, we're thrilled to have you as a business partner.
Excited to join and get involved in any way that we can.
Fantastic. Ronald, do you want to announce the other new business partners real quick?
Yeah, Sunbelt Hot Tubs. Bob Cook. Bob, are you here with us still?
I think Bob had to leave a couple of conversations ago.
No.
We should
we have a new member, Sunbelt Hot Tubs, and we'll learn more about them the next time. My Galveston Getaway. Kathleen Harrison, are you here today?
I don't think any of the other business partners are here, Love. We'll just put their names into the record.
Yep. Okay, sounds cool. We have Create Moment Photography, Jose Rodriguez, and Concierge Unlimited, Mary Gilchrist. We thank all those business partners.
Fantastic. And then under President's Report, guys, we're just continuing to ask questions. There's a lot of behind the scenes advocacy going on. We're having really good conversations with council members about the difference between the $250 registration fee and the $92. How is that being used? Can we please have an accounting of that? So know that Claire, please.
No, I'm sorry. Finish just when you finish.
That we numbers can't be picked out of the air. There's got to be a justification for it, and this hotline is going to be really helpful, guys. I really think it is, because it's kind of proving out what was suspected. You had a very small number of people who like to complain or have actual issues, but the scope isn't nearly as big as was thought.
That's true.
One of the other questions we're starting to ask is, why do we pay a registration fee and not the hotels? That's kind of a deeper conversation than for right now, but we're asking the question because if it's all about spreading the cost of services for tourists, then it should be a part of the conversation, along with how are day trippers getting to contribute who don't contribute to HOT taxes? How are attractions getting to contribute? All of us are benefiting from the tourism traffic on the island. We should all share in carrying the burden in as fair a manner as possible. There is a new task force, and before I talk about the task force, Bryson is it's not a polite offer. If you have something going on with the software, reach out. They're very, very available. Go ahead, Claire.
Well, I was just going to say there's another thing going on that I'm keeping an eye on, and I know Anna is too, because we've been talking about it. But we hear that John Glowowski, our illustrious city attorney, has been tasked with coming up with an ordinance that outlines penalties. When you do something wrong, when this, then that. And so I have put in my request, as always, saying, you know what, please have us at the table. You know, we have the task force, we've studied this stuff, we know about this stuff, we have ideas. Of course, no calls have come yet, or maybe I missed it, right, Anna? But I just wanted to say it's something we're going to be watching for, because I always try to say to them, have us at our table, have us at the table rather than at the podium. And so it's just something we'll be watching for. And Anna, I know that we're going to get it out to GARM, and Anna will get it out to you guys, because I'm sure that there's going to be some things that we want to react to once we see it. So I just wanted to tell you that I've heard that now from 3 sources in City Hall, that is something that's being worked on.
Thank you, Claire. That is very important. Yeah, I think when they involve us early, it prevents redos. Like, we have valuable information. We can make this better. To that end, I think the new task force that is, I say new, it's really the old task force is being rehydrated. Ronald is not going to be representing us on the new version. Winter has graciously offered to be the new representation on there. Been voluntold, something along those lines. But it's valuable. No, it's really valuable representation, and I think that's a great place to go to be able to discuss some of this stuff. So, Winter, thank you for your service there. We encourage all of our members to join us in working with our city council members on these issues, asking the questions. The louder the drumbeat, the squeakier the wheel, the more the answer. So it's very helpful. Ronald, it's Vice President report time. You've already done new business partners. Would you please? You've got 2 things on your list. You want to talk about those?
I do. We are going to have a social on October 4th.
September
4th. 7 o'clock p.m. Coastal Grill. Coastal Grill will be catering it for us. It will be an open bar. We will have tables for our business partners. And I think it's just a good opportunity for all of our members to get together and talk and share and have some fellowship.
I think that is a great event, except for, let's be very clear, it is a cash bar.
What did I say?
An open bar.
Free?
Oh, God, no.
Means we're paying
Ron
for it,
is buying for everybody.
Yeah, Ron's going to give him his American Express. It'll all be fine.
Yeah, there you go.
It is September 4th, and this is one of those valuable fellowship network events that's the glue of our organization. And then, Ronald, were you going to talk a little bit about your advocacy stuff you've been doing?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just we're making sure, of course, Claire and I are always at council meetings and workshops. We were at the last one and the one before that, of course. Just like to have our ear to the floor, although my ears are not doing very good these days. I know.
Your ear is on your phone. That's where your ear is.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's where we are. We are looking forward to seeing what the city is going to do with the new task force for code enforcement.
Well, I think it's just a valuable voice.
I'm interested to see if they actually appoint it.
Yeah, I am too. I think it is going to be interesting. So we shall see.
It's something we as an organization can and should advocate for.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've done with the vice president. Our treasurer couldn't meet with us tonight. We have $5,736.90 in the bank. There are no particular upcoming events other than, of course, the social. And then our next meeting will be the 2nd Monday in October. Do we have any other business? Claire.
Thank you, guys. I have to go. Thank you so much for arranging this. Bye, everybody.
And on
Bye,
that
Claire.
note, we're going to close this whole meeting. Our numbers were small but mighty tonight. I think that was really
Yep.
valuable to get to have Bryson hear from us. And I appreciate that he comes and takes the time and is interested to hear what we as owners have to say. So, all right, you guys, I'm dropping y'all like a bad habit.
Bye.
I move this meeting gets adjourned. Winter 2nd, do we have any opposed? No, bye.
Good night.
Night.